Basic strip loin, right? Boneless beef strip loin. In today's marketplace, this would be called a 0x1 strip loin. What is meant by 0x1? If we look at the eye muscle, there's the eye muscle. There's a little bit of fat extending off the end of the eye, right? This fat right here measures about 1 inch. All right? If I turn it around to this side, the end of the eye muscle is right to the end, right? There is no fat on the end. So 0x1, right? 0x1 strip loin. This one is also trimmed down to a level of 1/4 inch fat, all right? In the industry today, they don't actually even use a knife to trim this. They would trim it on a table trimmer that's kind of like a spinning lathe, and they would take it and just go like this, and it would trim it automatically. So the meat industry is very automated in that fashion. We're going to take it a little bit further. We're going to take this down. The way I know how to trim it is to feel the top, all right? If it feels really firm, that means I need to go a little bit further with my trim. I take my knife, my larger knife, scimitar or chef knife, and push it through. Push the fat off, away from my other hand. Turn it like so. Take off that heavier fat, all right? I'm going to leave a little bit of fat on. If I'm going to roast this, I want some fat on for protection. And even on a steak, I may want some fat on there if I'm going to char grill my steak, because I want that fat to drip down into the char grill and give me some flair, give me some flame that comes up and helps caramelize the exterior. All right, so we've got the top fat trimmed to a level that's manageable. Now, if we notice right along here, along this top edge, there's a thick collagen band that runs along the top. All right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove a section of that. About 2 inches into the eye muscle, I make a little score line. And then, just like we trim the tenderloin, I'm going to trim the strip loin. I'm going to peel all of this collagen band away. All right? Dive the knife into it slightly. Create a tag. And then zip, off it comes. It's not quite as delicate, not quite as directional as the tenderloin. But you still want to be very careful. It's quite an expensive piece of meat. If you're going to do fancier sautéed steaks, then you might consider taking all of this off, all right? Trimming down all of the fat. We're assuming that these are going to go on the char grill, so we're not going to take it down much further than that. Now, along the front of this, you're going to find a section that looks like a chain. There's kind of a thick, muscly piece that runs along the front. All right, you see that band there? There's actually a natural seam. Some chefs will pull that off. Other chefs may leave it on. I'm going to take off a small section of it, and we'll look at the interior of it. It's quite a tender piece, but it does have some fat between it, and there may be a touch of connective tissue. But as you can see, it's really quite tender. If I can pull it apart like that, it's not very tough at all. So I'm going to leave the rest of it on there. That'll be your option, depending on how thick the chain is, whether it's falling off or whether it's secured, and the type of restaurant in the use. Now, once the top is trimmed like so, I'm going to turn it over. We'll take a look at the underside. The underside, you can see where the bone structure was attached. There may be some bone fragment still attached. This is where the 13th rib was attached right here. There's usually a channel. We want to peel that out, that 13th rib channel. And any bone fragment that's sitting on the bottom. There's usually little stripes of it. It's kind of pinkish. Peel those away. When we're roasting, we could leave some of the fat on. I prefer to leave a little bit of the fat on for flavor. But if it's really thick along this area here, you can take that down a touch. The modern strip loins tend to come really quite well trimmed, though. All right, so we're just about ready to do a portion out of this. The strip loin connects on this end to the ribeye, okay? Connects right to the ribeye here. In fact, this is where all the grading is done. This would be basically the ribeye area. And we can see this is a fairly decent piece of meat. It's got nice marbling, right? It's a nice solid eye muscle right there, ready to be cut into a steak. The other end, this is called the vein steak, and this connects into the sirloin. So this end is a little bit tougher, and the reason they call it the vein steak, I'm going to cut a portion off of here. So I just nosedive the knife down into it and cut a smooth portion off. You can see that there is a collagen band running through the middle of it. See that collagen band right there? That makes this steak a little bit tough, all right? This should not be sold as your marquee strip loin steak. This could be turned into a sliced steak, a sandwich steak, again, kebab en brochette, those kind of things, as opposed to your very high-end steak. You know, that piece could be tough, all right? So if you make it into a sliced steak, you take it like so and break that collagen as you carve it once it's cooked, all right? Maybe for luncheon, that becomes your garlic steak sandwich or whatever you prefer. But to sell it as your high-end strip loin steak really doesn't make it, okay?
About where does that start? How many?
You be 1 or 2 steaks in. You know, it varies from time to time. Sometimes I cut them way into the sirloin. There's going to be a good-sized chunk. If I'm going to turn this into a roast, I may take off just that small end and roast it, and then when I'm carving it, I would carve to that point and then reserve this for family meal or something like that off the end. All right? Roasting tends to break it down more than when you do it as a steak, especially, you know, a nice medium rare steak. That's going to be a big band of collagen in the middle. All right? Turning this into portions, it's pretty simple. Hold it steady, right? I place my palm against the steak. I nosedive the knife down in, holding everything smooth. Cut a nice even portion. Trim it further if needed. And there's our nice portion cut strip loin steak. I check my thickness all the way around. Looks pretty good. Right, nice solid steak. Place it on the scale, see if it's what I'm looking for. 8-ounce steak is what I'm looking for. Well, 8.5, I would lose my job. All right? No, you want them, you know, you want them within a half an ounce. You want to be accurate with this. Oversized steaks are basically like throwing away money. So you want to keep them right in the realm. There we go. That's about 8 ounce. Okay? That's a nice sized portion, especially with a nice sauce. That's plenty of steak on the plate. Right? 2 ounces extra, 10 ounces, it's hardly going to be noticed. And yet, that ends up as a lot of money at the end of the year. So, there we go. That's our strip loin. If I'm going to tie this into a roast, simply just take the string, Start in the center. Basic butcher's knot. Cinch it and lock it. Doesn't have to be too tight. It's already a nice shape to start with. So it doesn't have to be shaped too much. Just to snug it together and make sure it cooks evenly and so it looks nice. Space them maybe about an inch, inch and a quarter apart. I try to line up all the knots in a row so that when it's time to remove the knots, it's easy. I can just pop one after the other. Right? Any questions on that? When we do ours, you're going to peel a strip line, take off 1 or 2 vein steaks off the end, and then tie them up. Actually, we could cut some portion cuts today too. We'll cut some nice 8-ounce, 6 to 8 ounce portion cuts. All right, we'll make them on a little bit of the smaller side. One other thing. See the eye muscle on this one? It made a nice 8-ounce steak. This one initially weighed about 10 pounds. Okay, if this weighed 13, 14 pounds, can you imagine the size of the eye muscle? It'd be huge. For me to cut an 8-ounce steak out of an oversized strip loin means the steak is going to be very thin. It'd be about this thin and an odd shape, all right? So when you're dealing with the purveyor, make sure you're very specific about the size. And the only way to get the size of the eye muscle is to get the average weight. So strip loin, 9, 10, 11 pounds is acceptable for a nice 8-ounce steak. Once you get over that 11, 12, 13 pounds, you're going to end up with a very big steak. And your crew, you know, your crew is going to overcut them so they can have a 3/4 inch steak. They're going to cut you a 12, 10-ounce steak when you're selling an 8-ounce steak on the menu, which is going to be awkward and it's going to lose you money. All right? So make sure you're getting the right size when dealing with the purveyor.